We're moving into a little bit of a different field right now. I accumulate a lot of questions over the years, and some of them are very unusual. This case, we're going to ask both Chuck over at Chuck Crosby Law Offices and Brad over at Home Team Inspection Services to give us some of the more unusual things on this Thanksgiving Day that we're all happy that this doesn't happen on a regular basis. Got it? That's the premise. So here is we start with Brad. Unusual home inspection finds, and I've got some from friends around the country. Have you got any that you were able to talk about off the top of your head from
Oh
Idaho?
boy, oh boy, there are lots and lots of them. Where do I start? There for the home inspectors, there's that four-letter F word that is called flip that
Yeah.
we all love so dearly. I have lots and lots of flip horror stories, but I think the one that I would probably remember the most was a young investor had a little bit of money set aside and he decided to buy a home on a tax sale in the west end of Louisville. And smart guy, I'm sure he had a great plan going in, but he hired us to come out and do a mold inspection on this house. So
Hmm.
I got out there, and the first thing we had to take down the 4x8 sheet of plywood that was functioning as the front door. Took that down. Walked in, the house was pretty much falling apart. Found out at that time that he had paid $15,000 for this property. Other homes along the street, none of them have been renovated yet.
Hmm.
Pretty much everything's run down. But I'm looking around going, wonder why he's wanting a mold test on this. So I did some other investigation before I started any of the mold testing. Found more than 2 feet of water in the cellar. Found a number of just looking at it, not inspecting the home itself, but found a number of cracked main floor joists, the main beams. Several had been cut, and I just asked the guy what his intention was, and he said that he had done some running of numbers and figured that he could renovate this entire house for $3,000.
Oh boy. Oh.
And I'm looking at this. So it ended up being a conversation that took probably 45 minutes to an hour on site, kind of talking some other things. But a long story short, he opted not to do the mold test. Rightly so. Don't waste money on that for a home that probably ended up getting bulldozed back into the wet hole that was below it. But felt bad for him. He'd done a lot of research, but I think that's one that's probably very memorable. We've been really thankful over the years to have done some pretty spectacular homes, for local celebrities and others, just people that, have big houses, and many of them are very memorable. Some of the historic properties that we've done, 140, 150-year-old properties, those are always memorable. But yeah, I think anytime the bad ones, they always involve some sort of a flip, so.
All right, we move over to Chuck Crosby. I've got a showing but as a buyer agent. I'll tell you in a bit. But go ahead, Chuck. What were some of the unusual closings that you've had to deal with?
Well, let's see. How about chairs being thrown? We
Between
had a
from who to who?
uh,
Yeah,
follow
yeah,
me here.
yeah.
We have three back-to-backs. So A is buying from B, who buys from C, who buys from D.
Okay.
We're at D at this point, and D stands for divorce. It's a very large gentleman. I'd say about 6'5", about 3 foot wide, and he wasn't drunk, but he'd had a drink or two, and he's
Hmm.
sitting there, and he and wife, who was this small slip of a lady, sitting next to him, he tells her, "I want all the money cut in half right now."
Hmm.
Well, I can't do that. They're getting a divorce. I don't know how the judge is going to cut it up. So, I explained to him the different ways we can handle it, and he wasn't happy with that. So she made a comment. He always did mess things up. So he just brushed some pens off at her,
Ooh.
and that wasn't good enough. So he stood up and he tossed the chair at her.
Ugh.
Then he heads out the door. It's like, okay, what are we going to do here? So I can't tackle the guy. So I just go outside with him, and I talk him down off the ledge. Could be things were said about his wife, and people, if you don't argue with them, they think you agree. So I let him go under that. So I get him back into the room. I get his signatures. He's out of there. Okay, closings go through, because if you hadn't signed, none of the closing worked, and you got three sets of families that don't have what they need.
Right.
That's not the crazy part.
Oh,
Okay. The crazy part is the loan officer is sitting down at the end of the table. And after the gentleman left, he looks over to the young soon to be ex wife and he says, "Hey, you want to go out for some drinks later?"
Oh
no.
no. Oh,
Tackiest thing
That's
I ever saw in my
uh,
life.
wow.
She, of course, turned him down, but
Uh-huh.
that gentleman, yeah, he threw me for a loop on that one.
That's interesting. As a buyer agent, the most, and I'm in it almost 19 and a half years, the most unusual thing that I had ever dealt with, and there's a bunch of them, but one of the ones that goes to the top was I was showing a home to a couple of a family. We were going through the house. Now, in the basement, there was a large bear, stuffed bear. So we didn't think so much of that, but then we worked our way up to the second floor. And we opened the door to one of the kids' bedrooms, and on the bunk bed, there had to be between the top bunk, the bottom bunk, and then on top of the dresser, at least 20 deer heads that had been mounted. Yeah, scared the bejeebers out of my clients and me, quite frankly. Apparently, the agent must have told them to take all the deer heads down and put them somewhere, but he didn't tell them where to put them. And putting them in a kid's room on bunk beds, I'm not sure that was the exact way to go.